Hey guys, OGLina here, and as many of you know, power creep is the single biggest problem in competitive singles Pokemon. Each coming generation, it seems like the Pokemon introduced get stronger and stronger, leaving older, lesser Pokemon to languish in the background, never seeing the competitive light again. Because of this, I've decided to make this series in which I take some forgotten and unfortunately bad Pokemon that you all suggest to me in the comments. Hint, hint, suggest them to me in the comments for next episode, thank you. And bring them up to speed so they can once again occupy a competitive niche. This series is therefore aptly called Fixing Your Favorites. If you guys are excited for this upcoming episode of Fixing Your Favorites, be sure to drop a like on the video as well as subscribe to the channel. We are on our way to 3,000 subscribers, and if everybody who watches this video today drops a sub, we hit it today, and that's my end of the year goal. So I would really appreciate it a ton. It helps me out, and you know, I really these videos take a lot of effort. So again, I really appreciate it. But yeah, that being said, let's jump into it. If you guys saw our last Fixing Your Favorites, which go watch it if you haven't, we buffed Big Magmortar, giving it the Dark typing, Mega Launcher, a ton of coverage, and a stat rework. We set a light goal of 50, which you guys absolutely crushed to cover Electivire this episode, so I think it's only right to deliver on that promise and start off with Electivire here. Electivire was a Pokemon that garnered so much hype in its initial generation, but it fell off the face of the earth pretty early on. This fade into obscurity was exacerbated in each coming generation as stronger and stronger Pokemon were introduced. Our first change to Electivire to make it more relevant will be changing its typing. We will be adding the Fighting type to Electivire. This stab combo of Fighting Electric is so unbelievably hard to switch into, as seen with the recent additions to the typing combo in Palmot and Iron Hands. Now this typing change isn't good enough, as Electivire is lacking in a ton of different places. Next up will be his stat spread. Again, like Magmortar, I don't want to just raw buff his stats, as there has to be some give and take, but some better stat optimization is in order. First up, we'll be taking 20 out of Electivire's less used special attack stat and be throwing it into attack and speed, boosting them by 10 each. This lets Electivire perform its intended physical wall breaker role much better. Even with that boosted attack though, Electivire will be a little bit on the weaker side, at least comparative to top tier threats in Generation 9. To compensate for this a little further, we'll be giving our boy the long awaited Iron Fist ability, boosting the power of his punching moves. This added boost will make moves like Fire Punch, Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, and Plasma Fist very incredible for Electivire. Wait, Plasma Fist? Yes, of course we'll be giving it Zeraora's signature move. Thunder Punch, even with the Iron Fist boost, pales in comparison to Plasma Fist, which is also boosted by the ability. We will also give it Mach Punch for stab priority that is also boosted by Iron Fist, and Swords Dance to give it that little bit more oomph and sweeping capability. Electivire looks so good on paper, but it just flops in practice. This new version looks good and is good, and would likely be a bona fide OU threat. Next is another Pokemon that seemed like it was going to be way better than it was in Silvally. This Pokemon was portrayed as an incredibly strong Pokemon in the lore, modeled after Arceus himself and able to take on monstrously strong Ultra Beasts. Instead, we got a fun Draft League Pokemon and a low tier staple. Silvally isn't bad per se, but I think it should live up to its name as the Ultra Beast Killer. Keep in mind these buffs are meant to be insane, to truly reflect its power as an attempt to clone the god of the Pokemon world itself. First up is the easy one and its base stats. We're just going to bump them up a bit to base 100s across the board. This will match a plethora of mythicals and give it a nice little bump in speed, power, and bulk. Next up is the big one, the memories. Silvally can change its type based on the memory it's holding, much like Arceus. Issue is, the memories give no boost, and it eats up the all-important item slot, which is incredibly important in competitive Pokemon. Let's give these memories a little bit of value. They will now give a 1.2 times boost on stabs, much like the plates do with Arceus. This gives multi-attack a ridiculously strong boost, making whatever stab of your choice very strong. Moving on to the additions to Silvally's move pool. I think Silvally is missing quite a bit in order to make sure all of its typings have a viable chance of being useful. Starting off, let's add Stealth Rock for hazard setting capabilities. And while we're at it, we should probably give it Recover for, well, recovery. These buffs should help defensive sets, but what about offensive options? I think we can also take a page out of Arceus' book and give it two of Arceus' best setup options, Calm Mind and Dragon Dance, as well as the best priority option in the form of Extreme Speed, in order to give a much needed buff to the normal type Silvally. Did I just make a mini Arceus? Yes, but I feel like that's the whole point of Silvally. Can you imagine seeing SDE Killer Normal Silvally, or Swords Dance / Calm Mind Ground Memory Silvally, or even the Defensive Stealth Rocking Water Memory Silvally? Now honestly, I may have gotten a little bit too far with this one. However, power creep has gotten insane this generation, so maybe it could function in an OU metagame due to its mediocre, not specialized stat spread. Also, it's fun, and it's my series. Let me know what you guys think of Diet Arceus in the comment. Now to a more obscure Pokemon that needs some buffs in Mr. Rime. This monstrosity. Seriously, look at him. He is terrifying. What is on his stomach? Why does he look like that? Stop smiling at me. Is pretty darn bad competitively. Let's fix that. First up is the ability. Screen Cleaner is a really cool idea, removing screens on entry, but it's just a bit too niche. Instead, my idea is to make Mr. Rime a screen setter with its ability, automatically setting them on entry. Now, this is pretty busted, so in a way to tame it, I would make it to where Light Clay did not extend the duration of the Light Screen and Reflect, locking them at 5 turns. Even with only 5 turns, having the ability to instantly prepare a Pokemon with both Light Screen and Reflect will make Mr. Rime instantly viable, even if it's just meant to sack itself for a setup sweeper. And honestly, Mr. Rime might prefer it that way. We'll also be giving our boy access to Chilly Reception. Not only does the move make it incredible as a screen setter with momentum on its new ability, but this move was made for this guy thematically. On top of that, we'll optimize its stats a bit, dropping its attack by base 20 and its speed by base 10, while raising its defense by 20 and special defense by 10. This allows it to function as a slower, bulky screen-setting pivot who could even rapid spin and continue to heal itself up with Slack Off for repeated use of Screen Cleaner. Mr. Rime might become more of a staple on Hyper Offense than Alolan Ninetales, especially in doubles where their use of Cobra Cloaks, options like Fake Out, Healing Wish, Chilly Reception, Encore, and Trick Room, and many other useful moves at its disposal. Mr. Rime may have a case for being one of the strongest support Pokemon ever conceived. Next up, we head to Hoenn for Aggron. Man, this thing looks way too cool for it to be this bad. My first ever Pokemon game was Ruby and Sapphire, and I remember 10-year-old me thinking this thing was unbelievably cool and strong, but man oh man is that far from the truth. Aggron is plagued by one of Pokemon's biggest problems, being slow and bulky with an awful defensive typing. Sure, Rock and Steel can grant some great resistances, especially from physical attackers, but having a 4x weakness to both ground and fighting, 2 of the most prevalent attacking types in Pokemon, is not good for it. Therefore, we'll start off by fixing Aggron's typing and giving it a pure steel form, just like its mega form of old. You'll still retain your fighting and ground weakness, but now you won't fold to any attack thrown your way from these typings. In another similar vein to Mega Aggron, we'll give our base Aggron access to Filter as an ability. I cannot stress enough how good Pure Steel is on its own as a defensive typing. Then when you add the ability Filler, it essentially loses any real weaknesses, especially when accounting for Aggron's insane bulk. Well, at least on the physical side. Aggron has some pretty bad special defense. To optimize its bulk a bit, we're going to take 20 out of its special attack that it never uses and move it to its special defense. This makes it insanely fat on both sides of the spectrum. Lastly, we'll add 2 moves to Aggron's great move pool, Bullet Punch and Spikes. Spikes because we can set up both types of traditional entry hazards, Stealth Rock and Spikes now, and most Steel's got it this gen anyways. Bullet Punch lets Aggron fight back against weakened but faster threats, picking them off. This also helps out with Curse Aggron sets, allowing it to potentially function as a bulkier, fatter setup sweeper. Lastly, we have to end with a Pokemon that's honestly so much fun to use than lower tiers in Druddigon. It has such an insane move pool and 3 incredible abilities in Rough Skin, Mold Breaker, and Sheer Force. Despite a ton of incredible qualities, I think there's one big thing that holds it back. That's its base stat total. Druddigon is sitting with a very low BST of 485, which is honestly insane. The fact that this single stage Pokemon held this much viability with middle stage Mon BST is insane. We're going to go ahead and bump up that base stat total to 535, mirroring other single stage Pokemon like Duraludon, who's getting an evolution here soon. So if you think this is too much a buff for some reason, Duraludon can hold an Eviolite and has 50 more base stat than Druddigon. Druddigon's new stat spread will be 77 HP, 135 attack, 100 defense, 85 special attack, 92 special defense, and 48 speed. The first boost is to attack, boosting it by base 15. This allows offensive Druddigons to thrive in Generation 9, making use of its insane coverage and offensive ability in Sheer Force. Not much is going to want to switch into the Dragon Stab, Gunk Shot, and Iron Head coverage, Elemental Punches, and Edge Quake, especially consider a lot of these coverage moves are Sheer Force boosted. Next up is a small defense boost and 10. really helping out physically defensive rough skin rocky helmet sets at being as bulky and obnoxious as possible. Our last buff is in special attack, which seems odd, I know, but Druddigon's crazy coverage isn't just in its physical attacks, but also its special ones. This buff of 25 really lets Druddigon lead into the offensive Life Orb Breaker much better, allowing it to utilize its much less known special move pool. As a frame of reference, Nidoking also has a special attacking stat of 85, and is seen as immensely strong. This new special power on top of its astronomical physical power will make Druddigon an insanely bulky wall breaker, with the ability to flex into a defensive role as well. Move pool wise, I only asked for one addition in Spikes, really boosting up its mold breaker hazard setting capabilities. This more specialized stat distribution should make Druddigon a threat not to be slept on. While I do think you could make an argument for a secondary typing on Druddigon to give it another stab like Rock, Poison, Ground, or any other strong typing, a pure Dragon type also gives Druddigon some key benefits in OU. The biggest niche Druddigon could probably have would be to fill in as an Ogre Pawn check, since it's a strong offensive dragon with coverage that could pressure Wellspring, which is the best form in OU right now, while still having the ability to set up Spikes as its force to swap. These buffs could honestly give Druddigon a strong presence on balanced teams in OU, due to its strong bulk and potent offensive stats and typing. Thank you guys so much for watching this week's episode of Fixing Your Favorites. Let me know what you think of the buffs we have in the comments below. Let me know if you think I went a little too over the top. I mean, Silvally went crazy, but I thought these ones were a lot of fun. And again, the whole point was Silvally for it to go crazy, so who knows. Again, I really do appreciate it. You have to drop some things in the comments below. Even if you've commented them before on episodes in the past, let me know what you want to see next, and I will hopefully get it for you. And yeah, that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to all my channel members. I have so many right now that I can't shout them all out. I need to find a better system at like getting them all shouted out, but thank you all so much. I really do appreciate the support and all the love, and yeah, I will see you guys next time. Later.